I was invited in '73 to, I would come back to Los Angeles on vacations from the New York City Ballet and teach some classes for Irina Kosmovska, who was, my favorite teacher in those days. And one year, she had a student company called Los Angeles Junior Ballet, and they would do these performances like school recitals. So she invited me to her president of her board, Betty Empey, who later became a big force. She stayed at LA Dance Kaleidoscope with Betty. But Betty invited me to come back because I was going to be in LA anyway. She goes, "Do you want to do something on this show or maybe choreograph?" I said, "Sure." So I brought out a couple of dancers from New York City Ballet that had come from Los Angeles, from Irina School. Lily Samuels, who later married Brandon Tartikoff, who was the head of NBC, brought Lily out. Marilee Stiles, who later married Stuart Stern, who wrote Rebel Without a Cause screenplay, and the two Bourne sisters. Bonita Bourne, who later became a ballet mistress for San Francisco, and Lisa Bourne, who became one of Baryshnikov's last partners in New York City Ballet, and then she also now stages Balanchine around the world. So all these kids were from LA, all trained by Irina. So I brought them back to dance on the program, and then some local ballet patrons saw the review, which was nice, and had dinner with me and said, "John, would you be interested in maybe doing more in LA and trying to start a company?" And I went, "Well, I can't start a company," because I was only at that point 25 or something, 26, and very busy in New York City Ballet. By that point, I was a principal dancer. I had choreographed 8 ballets for New York City Ballet. The press was calling me Balanchine's heir apparent and all that stuff. I didn't say it, but they did, so protege, etc. And I was very happy in New York, and I was very happy with Balanchine. It was great, everything was wonderful. But I choreographed 8 ballets, and Balanchine was very vital still. And Jerry Robbins was back with the company. And I was an original in Dances at a Gathering, his comeback, and in Goldberg Variations, and I was original principal in Evenings Waltzes. So I was, but Jerry choreographing for the company, Balanchine choreographing still masterpiece after masterpiece. I was feeling pretty redundant, and since my main goal was to please Balanchine when I choreographed, which I usually did. I mean, he put my ballets on, so I guess they couldn't be that bad. I kind of felt, am I doing anything really choreographically? Because he does it better, and Jerry does it better. Whatever I do, they're going to do it better. So I felt, well, that's not going anywhere. I had invited to be a director of the Deutsche Oper when I was 25. But Balanchine told me to turn that down. He said, "You and the Germans, forget it." And he was right. He said a big opera house would have just chewed me up, and he was right. I said, okay. So I turned them down. But so I liked the idea of coming to Los Angeles and maybe doing different kinds of choreography, and and I love LA. I mean, that's why I still live here right now. Right now, that's the only reason I'm here. I love it. So I thought, well, let's see what happens. So we did some concerts. Again, the press was great. I did another program and brought out Violette Verdi and Allegra Kent and Tony Blum and Sarah Leland with local Los Angeles dancers as the core and a couple local Los Angeles dancers as leads. And they started a company, it's called Los Angeles Ballet Theater then, because Los Angeles Ballet name wasn't available, so the board chose that. And then after 3 times of doing that, I thought, and I was starting to get, my idea of a company was like a family, because that's how Balanchine was with the company. It was a family. It wasn't a business. It was a family. So I felt like that, and I felt guilty when I was leaving the dancers and going back to New York, with my secure career. And then all these kids, they really didn't have much to do unless I came out to do something. So finally I said to Mr. B, I said, I think, I was 26 years old, I just turned 26. I said, I just turned, 26. I said, I think I really need to stay in LA and really try to, he didn't want me to. He said, no, dear, because LA, they don't really want to support it. And I tried, he said, I tried back 10 years ago, they didn't want to do, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I got to give it a shot. And the board was bringing in some big heavyweight people at that time, And so he said, well, okay, if you must, you must. And then 6 weeks later, the City Ballet was coming to the Greek, and they called me to come back and dance. And I was like, okay. And I thought, what? He said, no, there's one of your ballets, maybe Stars and Stripes with Gelsey, because she was going to leave too at that point. And it was, my timing was bad because Balanchine was bringing Coppelia into the company for me and Gelsey. So we started all the rehearsals with Coppelia. Danila was supposed to be me and Gelsey. But no, I left to come here, and she left to go dance with Misha. But I should have stayed another year to do Coppelia. I really should have stayed. Anyway, but I was young and dumb. So I came to LA, and then he brought me back to New York for 2 years, off and on, to keep guesting with the company. Then Baryshnikov joined the company, and they didn't need me, which is understandable. So then, after Misha left, he brought me back again in 1980, and danced with the company again after Baryshnikov had left. So that was the last time I did Oberon. That's a whole other story. But, so we struggled in LA, and the biggest problem, to be really blunt, was Dorothy Chandler and the Music Center. And I met her because my optometrist was her optometrist. And Dr. Bernice Brown, very wonderful woman, who was very supportive. She was on my board, and she thought it would be good for me to meet Dorothy. And so I said, fine. So she set up, she didn't tell me she was doing this in advance, but she set up an appointment so we'd be in her office at the same time. So I had my examination. She goes, oh, John, I want you to meet Mrs. Chandler. And I went, so there, Mrs. Chandler was sitting there, Dorothy, you know. I had never spoken to her. And I was introduced, and I said, it was so wonderful to meet you, and I want to thank you so much for building the Music Center and giving our town, you know, a real proper center for the arts. And she was like, and you know, immediately I got a bad vibe, and I went, and she goes, well, and I'll tell, I mean, this is going to be on the record, but she said, well, you don't have anything to do with that horrible Stanley Holden or his wife, do you? And I didn't. I mean, I liked Stanley. He was a very good teacher here in LA, very popular for many years, and I was just shocked by that attack on Stanley, you know. And I went, no. Well, I tried to help them, you know. I let them have their school in my pavilion, and then we renovated the musicians' annex to have the school over there. But they were so ungrateful, and they wanted more and more and more. And she goes, I really do. I can't stand them, and I can't stand it. I really don't like ballet. You know, so I was like, geez, do I have a return ticket to New York? Because this is, you know, not a good way to start. So I you know, I just said, well, I hope you change your mind, and you know, we're going to do things very slowly, and you know, and I kind of backed out of the room because it was impossible. And the other bad sign in the beginning was Martin Bernheimer, because he had given us a good review when I had come out with the New York City Ballet Dancers. He'd given us a very nice review of the Times. But when I announced I was moving here and everything, he invited me to lunch at the dining room at the LA Times building. And I said, oh, fine. And so I went to lunch, and I can't believe this. He said, you know, why did you leave New York? And I explained why. And he goes, well, did you and Balance have a fight? And I went, no. Quite the opposite, no. And he went, well, you know, LA doesn't have any culture. They'll never have any culture. And I went, this is the music editor of the LA Times, and he's bad-mouthing my city. You know, and I got kind of, I said, well, Martin, I said, you know, I was born here, I was brought up here, and, you know, we had sold-out houses for every ballet company that came through. You know, the New York City Opera, San Francisco Opera used to come all the time, they were sold out. I said, maybe LA doesn't have its own culture, because it's kind of a young city, but I mean, boy, the people in LA like culture. So I'm hoping to tap into that and give them, you know. And he went, he said, it's, well, you know, no matter what I may write about you, just go ahead and do what you think you should. You know, and I just went, And then I found out, just to finish this without getting too negative, is that we had some very good board members. Irving Stone, you know, the author of Agony and the Ecstasy, you know, his wife was on our board, Jean Stone. Victor M. Carter, who was, I think, one of the biggest benefactors of the University in Tel Aviv, and he was a very big philanthropist in LA, he was on our board. We used to call him Papa Carter. He was a great, wonderful, supportive man. And Jim Jacobson, who was the West Coast head of Prudential Life Insurance and was a Mormon, was on our board. So we had a real mix of, you know, Dorothy Chandler herself was getting on the phone, calling these people to get off our board. And Jean Stone, when they said, John, I told her, stop calling me, Dorothy, because the ballet needs our help. We want to have a ballet company in town. And Dorothy said, well, the Music Center needs your help. The LA Philharmonic is the thing. We need your help. So it got to be this competition that I didn't know how to solve. You know, I didn't know. And there was a very interesting woman, Mrs. Named Olive Barrett, who was a big Music Center supporter, but she was also an extra in a lot of movies and TV shows. And she looked like, you know, the actress Martita Hunt? You ever heard of Martita Hunt? She had a very big face, you would say a horsey face in a way, but very elegant, and she would play these English dowagers and things. And so Olive Barrett, I think she had a lot of money, but her hobby was to be in movies as an extra, or just to be there. There was a hobby. So I got to know Olive, because my company did a lot of TV shows, we did a lot of movies, because it was a good way to bring income into the company. And they did them as ballet dancers, so we didn't have to moonlight as anything. They were ballets. But Olive got to be friends of mine, and one day Olive said, she said, John, you know, I just wish your board could resolve this conflict with the music center. And I said, well, I wish we could too, but I don't know what the conflict is. I mean, I'm not taking any money away from the music center. And Olive said, well, Dorothy, Buffy is a very good friend of mine, and Buffy feels you are. She feels your board is taking money away from the LA Philharmonic. And I said, but what can I do? I mean, LA should be a cosmopolitan, sophisticated city, and you should have ballet, opera, symphony orchestra, the three pillars of a society. And we have art museums, you know, and she said, well, Buffy, you know, so you have that man from Ambassador Auditorium in Pasadena, Stanley Rader, if you know the name. And he was, I think, the president board. So he got us to be able to do performances at the Ambassador Auditorium, which is a nice theater. But boy, was that a slap in the face to Buffy. Because in those days, when they opened the Ambassador Auditorium, the Ambassador Foundation had a lot of money, and they were paying musicians like Horowitz and things more money to play there than play at the music center. And we my little ballet company got caught in the middle because Stanley was on our board. And I said to Olive, I said, will you please tell Buffy we would love to play the music center if we could afford it. But they weren't giving us any breaks. Whereas the Ambassador Auditorium, because Stanley was on our board, we would get like a really reduced rate to rent the theater. But I said to Olive, we would love to be part of the music center and play at the music center. But she goes, well, she just says, you can't have Stanley Rader on your board. And I'm, well, would she like to come on board and replace him? I mean, you know, what do you want me to do? But anyway, that's what we faced for 10 years. And the end of it was the Joffrey getting their money from Dave Murdoch. You know about that, right? They got $2 million to be named president company of the music center. That's how they were chosen. But never mind. But that finally did it. And then my board finally gave up. And they said, we can't fight it anymore. And I said, damn it. Because we had a big school. We turned out Damien Wetzel, you know, Reed Olson, who's now the most popular dancer in LA, you know, there's a video of him. And my dancers went on to other companies, and they did fine. But they all wanted to stay in LA. And they had families here, and the school was big, and just was a real shame. But that's kind of I've spoken for an hour or so. That's the kind of my history in LA.